I thought I married the love of my life, but when his father passed away, he turned into a different man. And by different man, I mean he started cheating on me, but it gets so much darker. When he finds out the inheritance, it came with a clause. Well, he wasn't very happy about this, and I am not going to give in to him. My husband went off the deep end, and his father died, and I'm not sure if it's because of grief or defiance. If I married a complete psycho, I didn't know it. For some backstory, I met my husband at a charity event for work. We got to talking and exchanged numbers, but didn't really start talking until he messaged me a few months later. He seemed very charming and sincere and was particularly interested in my worldview, given that he grew up in a staunchly religious household and I'm not religious at all. I wondered if it would be a problem, but he always reassured me that he had no issues with it at all. Although he would always joke that his family would hate to see him dating somebody who wasn't religious. In hindsight, I'm wondering if this was the sole reason he wanted to date me. It would make sense given what I know now, but, well, after we had been seeing each other for about a year, he thought it was a good time for me to meet his family. I remember feeling super nervous because I wasn't sure how his family would receive me in light of my beliefs, especially his father. Aiden always described his dad as being tyrannical and ruling over their lives with an iron fist. He said that he lost out on a lot of experiences because his father was so strict with them growing up. He didn't get to do lots of things, and he wanted to do, until he went to college. Needless to say, I was terrified of his father before I even met him. We were going to a small family dinner at their place. It would be just his immediate family there, so mom, dad, his brother, his sister-in-law, and their kid. When we pulled up, his brother was outside on the phone, so I was introduced to him first. He seemed nice enough. The next person I met was Aiden's sister-in-law and his 3-year-old niece, both lovely. She also worked in the event planning coordination area, so we had a lot to talk about, and while we were talking, his parents came into the room. Aiden introduced me to them, and I was shocked to find out who his dad was. I'm not gonna dox him, but his father is in charge of a huge charitable organization, both locally and internationally. It was an event between his foundation and another company I work closely with, where I met Aiden. I'd seen Aiden's dad and mom at the event, but he never mentioned that they were his parents. His mom was a little aloof, but not unkind. I learned later that she was always careful around the girls that Aiden brought around because he was attracted to the, quote, wild type. His father, however, was super nice and not at all what I expected. He did not seem to be surprised that I wasn't religious. He said that all women Aiden brought home were not Christian. He didn't care as long as they were kind and principled. We got to talking a lot about event organizations, and he said Aiden's sister-in-law handled all of the foundation, but she's been less involved since becoming a mother, and he didn't believe in taking people away from their families, especially when their kids were so young. That's why he outsourced the last event to me. Well, all in all, Aiden's family was not at all what I imagined them to be. I expected raging, mega-church evangelicals, but they were just regular people with a side of religion. Aiden brushed it off and said his father probably thought he was just going through another phase. In his college years, he dated lots of girls who were, for a lack of better term, out there. And his parents always thought it was an act of defiance, but he was more serious about me than he was about them, and he'd taken a break from dating since his college days to calm down and grow into a better man. Looking back, this was a whole bunch of crap, but I believed him because I was naive and I was in love. We continued to date for another year, and then he proposed. We decided we wanted to spend some time living together before we married, so I remember at another family event I went to, I had a long conversation with Aiden's brother. He said he was worried Aiden was, quote, acting out again while he brought me home. When they were teenagers, Aiden would fight with his parents, especially his father, a lot, because his dad would let them go out and get drunk and carouse and stuff. While he agreed their dad was a bit strict, he understood there were good intentions behind it. He said he was happy that his brother seemed to have grown up finally. Come to think of it, when we announced our engagement to his family, Aiden seemed a bit off. He told me it's because he ate too much and wasn't feeling well, but now I think he was disappointed in their reaction. He probably expected his parents and his father especially to be firmly against it, but his dad was actually super happy. He immediately offered his backyard for us to have the wedding if we didn't have to, use the church. We were still a ways away from that, but there was no harm in planning ahead. After about 2 years of living together and saving up money, Aiden and I finally settled on a date. I wanted to take his dad's offer of getting married in their backyard, but Aiden seemed opposed to that for some reason. It was just as lovely as my venue that we could rent out. It took a lot of convincing, but I finally got him to relent and we got married in his parents' backyard a little over a year ago. Things have been mostly fine. We were waiting to have children because we wanted to enjoy each other first before bringing in a third person. Also, I work for myself, so I don't get maternity leave. When I stopped working, that'll be the one source of income gone before I can start again. Anyways, all that backstory leads me to what happened 2 months ago. Aiden's dad suddenly suffered from an aneurysm and had to be rushed to the hospital. They operated on him, but sadly it wasn't enough and he passed away a week later. That's when I noticed a very, very big change in Aiden. He started coming home late and was very drunk. Very drunk. I thought it was just because he was handling his father's death poorly, so I asked his brother to talk to him. His brother came back and told me that Aiden did not seem sad at all that their father died. In fact, he seemed relieved. He said he wasn't sure what was going on with Aiden because the company was still in limbo after their father's death and their top donors were worried about its future, and he didn't need a member of the family making them look bad. After my conversation with him, I decided I'd also confront Aiden myself. I waited up for him and he did not come home until like 1 a.m. He was reeking of alcohol and stumbling through the house. I told him we needed to talk, even though I knew it was pointless to talk to him while he was in this state of abbreviation. I told him he should not be driving while he's drunk and he's going to hurt somebody or himself. He told me I should mind my own business, and that was the end of the conversation. There was no point talking to him drunk, so I just went to bed. The next day, I woke up to him throwing up in the bathroom, and I got him some aspirin and dry crackers. Since he seems to have been sobered up a bit, I asked him why he was being so irresponsible. He said he didn't have his old man lording over him anymore, so he was free to do what he wanted. I told him it's dangerous to be driving drunk and irresponsible to be coming home late at night. I told him his brother was worried about his behavior, and he gets mad and said his brother was just as bad as his old man. All they cared about was optics and didn't care if he was happy or not. They were always trying to drag him into a lifestyle he had no interest in being a part of, and judged him and gossiped about him whenever he didn't stick to it. It was at this point I realized Aiden's feelings about his family might be a little warped. I understand having some leftover trauma due to being sheltered as a child, but it almost seems like he wanted to make his dad mad and his family miserable as a way to get back at them. But all he was really doing was making himself miserable, instead because they weren't taking the bait. His family knew I was not religious from the beginning, and they've been nothing but welcoming and kind to me. They never forced their beliefs or their lifestyle on me. His dad invited me to church once and said that there's no pressure for me to come. Maybe I was seeing the best of him. I don't know what he was like when Aiden was younger. Maybe he was tyrannical, but Aiden needed to grow up. I asked him flat out, since he was so unhappy, if he was always not happy with me and our marriage. He said no, he wasn't happy. I didn't even know how to respond to that, so I just got up and left. Guys, I'm writing this from my mother's place, where I've been staying for the last week. Aiden has not called or texted me. His brother said that he wasn't talking to him either. I'm at a loss for what to do. This is definitely grounds for divorce, but I don't want to make such a rash decision if this is his way of coping with his father's death. I think I'll give him some time to cool off and maybe suggest we go to counseling. Top comments from the original post. Comment number 1. I feel you, OP. Your husband sounds like kind of a jerk. No offense, I hate yelling divorce at every marital problem, but his behavior continues. You should definitely consider it, especially given the previous things that he's said and done that have made you suspicious. I'm wondering why he chose now, after his father died, to act like this. Wouldn't there be more impact if his dad was still alive? Unless his goal was something else other than tarnishing the family name. His reasoning just doesn't make sense to me right now, or maybe he was still drunk. Either way, I think you should really evaluate your relationship with him after this, and I know you've only been married for a year, but you have to nip this kind of stuff in the bud, or it'll come back to haunt you later. I hope counseling works out. Good luck. Comment number 2. OP, it sounds like your husband is trying to reconcile with religious trauma he went through as a child. Like you said, you don't know if your father-in-law was different when he was a kid. I've seen some evangelicals who will beat the heck out of their kids to, quote, keep them in line. Churches even force their members to stay in unhappy relationships because they just can't stomach the idea of divorce. There's also a lot that goes into the church that leaves a really bad lasting effect. If he's the fixated person on what his dad thinks, then obviously there's something deeper there that needs to be explored. It's good that you want to go to therapy, but I don't think that's enough. Your husband should go to his own individual therapy sessions to work out his own childhood trauma. Just because his family was nice when you come around doesn't mean that they're nice in general. It just means they're nice to you. Update number 1. I don't even know where to start with this update. I'm so incredibly numb right now. Well, for starters, I'm still at my mom's place, but I did go back home once after about 2 weeks away. I tried calling and texting Aiden first, but he refused to answer. Then I got a call from his sister-in-law asking to meet for lunch. When I met her, her husband was with her. It was at the local coffee shop, and she asked how I was doing, and how things were with Aiden. I told the truth. How he'd been staying out late and coming home very drunk, being generally irresponsible, and I told them I'd been staying at my mother's, just to give him time to cool off before suggesting we go to couples therapy. But he wouldn't even answer my calls. They both just sat there and looked at each other. Then my brother-in-law told me that he had something to tell me. He said Aiden had been using the foundation's funds to buy expensive hotel rooms and escorts. When he confronted Aiden about it, he said he'd inherited part of the foundation anyways, so he had a right to spend the money. His brother told him that was not the case and that a lot of stuff was still being worked out with their dad's lawyer, so they wouldn't know who inherited what for a while. He also said Aiden told him that we weren't together anymore. He didn't say why, just that I, quote, had already moved out, so he was free to do what he wanted. As we all know, that's not the case. His brother and sister-in-law apologized for this mess. They said that they thought Aiden had finally settled down when he married me, and I thought so too. I mean, that's what he told me. He said the reason Aiden was so mad at their father was because when they were in high school, Aiden used to hang out with very outgoing kids. The kids who would go to basketball games, events by the lake, and such. Basically places where underage drinking was known to happen. Their dad actually lost his younger brother to a drunk driver, so he was super sensitive about that kind of stuff. Aiden's brother said he did not like it either, but he'd grown to understand, and their dad was just trying to protect them. I thanked them for telling me and went back to my mother's place. The next day I went home and started packing most of my stuff. Aiden came in while I was in the middle of it and he didn't say anything, just handed me an envelope. Divorce papers. He said he already knew his brother and sister told me everything and he didn't regret anything. He said the only reason he didn't divorce sooner was because his old man would have written him out of the will. Now that his dad's dead, he's finally free. He told me I could keep the house. The movers were coming the next day to take his stuff out, and he planned on getting something big and better as soon as he got his cut of inheritance. I was in so much shock I couldn't even speak. I just kept quietly packing up my stuff. I didn't even want to be around him for another second. I put what I'd packed into my car and headed back to my parents' place. I showed them the divorce papers and then went to my room to cry. I could not believe what was happening to me. I'd been so good to him and he just tossed me away like our marriage meant nothing. I'm having a meeting with a divorce attorney tomorrow. I don't plan on fighting this. If he wants to leave, Fine, he can leave. Update number 2. Boy, do I have an update for you all. Things just went from super sad to super interesting, so I had my meeting with my lawyer. She made sure I understood the terms outlined in the settlement and I was to get the house. We'd both keep all of our own assets, including the wedding rings, gifts, etc. We did not have a joint bank account, so there was nothing to work out there. I'll probably end up selling the house because, if I'm being honest, there aren't any good memories associated with it anymore. Since then, I've just been trying to put the whole situation behind me. I'm still staying at my parents' place temporarily. They seem to be happy to have me around, or maybe they're just trying to cheer me up. I guess I'll leave after I sell the house and find something smaller. Now, here's the best part. Out of the blue, I get a call from Aiden's brother. He asked how, we were doing, etc. Normal small talk, and then he asked if I was free the following Monday. I was. He said that they would finally be going to meet with their dad's lawyer to finalize his estate stuff, and I told them I wasn't sure what that had to do with me. He said I definitely, absolutely should come, and he also assured me that he'd make sure Aiden did not speak to me, and that we sat far away from each other, and I begrudgingly agreed. So Monday morning, I showed up at the lawyer's office. I met my brother-in-law, or former brother-in-law rather, standing outside. He thanked me for coming and escorted me to the lawyer's office. His wife was up there along with Aiden and his mother and a guy I assumed was the lawyer. So I went over to their mother and asked how she was doing. I'd offered her condolences at the funeral, but I had not spoken to her since. She said she was fine, also, that she heard about what happened between me and Aiden and was really sorry about it. She said that she and her late husband had done all they could to set him straight, but he just wanted to be a rogue. Anyways, the lawyer sat us all down. He apologized for taking so long to sort out the father's affair, and there were a lot of things that needed to be squared off that took a bit of time, and the meeting was long, but I'm going to summarize the juicy part. Most of his money would be going to charity, to be honest, and help keep the foundation afloat. He was passing down the running of the foundation to his oldest son and specifically said Aiden would not be involved. The largest part of the leftover money was going to his wife, some to his eldest son and his wife, and a school fund for his grandchild. But get this, he left money to Aiden, but with the condition that our marriage would last at least 5 years. Also, if we had a child, a school fund was to be established for them. He also left money for me. There was no condition attached to mine. The thing is, this was not chump change. He was leaving us. It was in the millions. I wish I could frame the look on Aiden's face when he heard the lawyer. Apparently his dad worried he would be irresponsible with the money and just spend it on hookers and booze. I mean, he wasn't wrong. At the end, the lawyer told us he'd schedule days where we could come in individually to sign the paperwork. He'd also filled any questions and concerns that we had. As soon as we were dismissed, I booked it out of there. I could see Aiden eyeing me from across the room like he wanted to talk, but I left before he could get the chance. I'm writing this the next morning, and I can already tell you guys he's been blowing up my phone. But after what he put me through, I want nothing to do with the guy. Update number 3. You guys, Aiden's been up and down looking for me. It's getting weird. After blowing up my phone did not work, he tried reaching out to his brother to ask if he'd seen or spoke to me, but I had not seen any of them since we met with the lawyer. His brother gave me a heads up to maybe disappear for a while, because Aiden was feverishly looking for me. As if on cue, he showed up at my parents' house one day looking for me. Lucky I was not there. My dad told him I was out of town for an event and he wasn't sure when I'd be getting back. Aiden left a message asking me to call him because we, quote, needed to talk, and I didn't have anything to talk to him about. We had our divorce, we went our separate ways, whatever. However, I did not like how he was harassing everybody trying to get to me, so I resolved to call him once just to get him off my back, and I knew he was going to try to keep me on the phone forever, so I made sure I had nothing else to do. I also had to psych myself up a bit, a lot, because I did not want to break down on the phone talking to him. I refused to let him believe he still had any power over me. So, I called him around 6 in the afternoon when I guessed that he'd be home. Whenever home, where it was for him now, He picked up right away and said he was so happy to hear from me and asked how I'd been. I said I'm fine. He was talking as though he had just thrown our marriage away like it meant nothing to him. He said he wanted to apologize for what happened with the divorce, and he did not realize how selfish he was being and how much he hurt me. That he should have tried to honor the commitment we made, even if it wasn't as happy as he wanted to be. I let him talk, then just sighed and said, "Is that what he wanted?" I'd moved past our marriage and was focusing on other things now. Then I asked what the real reason he was checking up on me was, and he swore it was just to see how I was doing. He also asked if we could talk more in the future, and I said no. And if he only called to see how I was doing, then there was nothing else to talk about, and he told me to wait, and finally the truth came out. He said he had made a mistake filing for the divorce. He was naive and blinded by his hatred for his father. He didn't mean any of the things he said to me, and he wanted to know if I would still be willing to work it out, and we went to counseling, etc. I told him my attorney filed the paperwork. There was nothing to work out. We are divorced, and the marriage is over, just like he wanted. I reminded him that he was the one who started all this. I followed along and gave him what he wanted, his freedom. So, go be free, little bird. Then I hung up. I have not spoken to him since, and I don't want to talk to him either. I hope he learns his lesson from this, but I'm not going to get used just so he can get some money. Update number 4. So, it's been a little bit since my last update. I've just been busy with a lot of life events and such, so I haven't had time to update. I'm actually writing this in between events. Business has been booming. First off, I had my meeting with the lawyer to sign the paperwork. I was able to choose between getting the money in a lump sum or getting payments sent to me every month. I chose the monthly payments. I also found a home that I like, and I'm just waiting for the bank to say yes or no. Apart from that, I saw Aiden's brother and sister for the first time since meeting the lawyer. We had a meeting regarding a charity event that the foundation's hosting in memory of Father. I'm helping with the planning, so I've been scouting out different venues, and this was when I got an update on Aiden. Apparently, he accused me of taking the house away from him in the divorce. They already knew it wasn't true because, well, divorce filings are public, so anybody can go read them. They asked me why he was lying, and he huffed and said the least I could have done was give him the house back since I already got so much money from his dad. If he wanted the house back, he could buy it. It's on the market. Anyways, they told me he's living in an apartment close to where he works. He asked his brother if he could get more involved in the foundation to make some extra cash, but his brother told him he could volunteer. There's no way he's going on the payroll after that little stunt he pulled with the foundation funds, and that's it. That's all the drama up until now, and I'm hoping this is the end of it, because I really want to move past Aiden and the drama surrounding him. I'm not letting him waste any second of my life anymore. Top comments from the updates. Comment number 1. Good for you, not falling for his bait, OP. As much as I know divorce hurts, sometimes it's like cutting off a tumor. The dude was not good for you and was only using you for his sick revenge fantasy against his father. It seems like his dad knew he was up to no good and made sure that he got something for his pain. He seems like a real stand-up guy, and it sounds like he considered you to be part of his family also. Good on your brother-in-law for helping you out. So many men say nothing when they know their friends and family members do garbage. I'm glad he's not one of them. Also, don't let your ex trap or trick you into having a child together. He's probably going to keep bothering you. Don't fall for it, OP. Comment number 2. I kind of agree with your ex, OP. You could have at least given him the house back. I know the divorce was final and the paperwork was in, and I know you're hurt by what he did to you, but it just feels petty to deny him at least a place to live. I'm sure your lawyers could have worked through the red tape and transferred the house to his name. Also, your father-in-law is just as petty. Why did only your husband have conditions on his money? If he wanted to be irresponsible with it, that's his prerogative. I mean, making somebody stay married for 5 years so they could get money is very icky.
Alright guys, let's discuss this one. I want to mention the last comment that we just read. The reason I added that comment is because it seemed to get a lot of people stirred up in the original post. Nobody was agreeing with that comment. Almost everybody could see, well, OP's
X deserved everything that he got, but this commenter was completely different. He says, why was the X the only person that had a clause on the money from the inheritance, basically blaming OP? I want to know how you guys feel about that last comment. So go ahead, share your opinions about it down below in our comment section. If you guys are new to the channel, welcome and thank you for joining me today. My name's Mr. Reddito, and I go ahead and narrate stories daily, so make sure you hit that subscribe button if you do want to support the channel, and if you enjoyed the video, smash that like button while you're at it. I'll see you guys tomorrow, and just remember, it's cool to be kind. Peace.